It's got to be one of, if not the most popular missile defense systems, and likely the one with the most combat experience. Iron Dome has been touted also as being the best, with an incredibly high success rate. But is it all it's worked up to be? How much of that is just propaganda? Obviously, every country wants to show their taxpayers and the rest of the world just how great their equipment is. So, is it? Also, as a side note, this will only cover actual hardware, not take any side in the conflict or argue that either are morally right or wrong, just about the systems involved. But before that, our sponsor, NordVPN. If you're online, you need protection. Hackers are always on the hunt to exploit your information. Spending just a few minutes online at a local coffee shop is all a cybercriminal needs to get your credentials. They make billions of dollars every year stealing data off unsuspecting victims. NordVPN has the best product out there to protect your browser, Android, Apple, and almost any device out there, whether it's your Fire Stick, your Nintendo Switch, or Chromecast. They have over 5,400 servers in 59 countries and can protect up to 6 devices at the same time. You get unlimited bandwidth, double data encryption, and up to 6 simultaneous connections to always make sure you're safe. And they have won multiple awards, including the Best VPN Award, and they're always highly recommended by experts. A 30-day money-back guarantee ensures that you're satisfied with their security. All for the cost of a cup of coffee. You can protect yourself for a month. So go click the link in the description. With it, you'll get a huge discount plus an additional month for free. Get yourself protected before it's too late. Don't be a victim. Get NordVPN. Artillery has always been a nightmare, one of the weapons the average frontline soldiers fear the most. It fires from many kilometers away, you can't see it, and it can be unpredictable just where it'll land. It's also one of the most deadly weapons. In World War II, half of all the casualties were due to artillery. World War II also saw the beginning of widespread use of rocket artillery. These rockets have many advantages over gun artillery. They are cheap and they don't require the large machines to fire and absorb the recoil. They can easily be moved around. They typically have a longer range and can often carry a larger amount of explosives. Until recently, there was no way to defend against artillery. The only option you had was to try to preemptively destroy them or counter battery fire, where your own artillery fired back at an enemy's artillery firing at it. The first major leap in technology to defend against artillery were counter battery radars. These could detect projectiles in flight, figure out the speed and direction it's moving, and calculate not only where it'll impact, but also trace its course back to see where it was fired from. This information could then be relayed back to your own forces to fire and destroy them. This is extremely difficult to do. Projectiles and even rockets are extremely small, making them extremely difficult to detect. And their flight time is so short, often less than a minute, so being able to not only detect, but also track and make all the calculations in time was a major challenge. It really wasn't until toward the end of the Cold War that computers and radars became powerful and accurate enough to consistently accomplish this task on the battlefield. However, once you can, that opens up the possibility of actively defending against them before they hit your own forces. This is often referred to as CRAM, for counter rockets, artillery, and mortars. This is, again, an extremely difficult task. Now, not only do you have to detect, track, and calculate their trajectory, but also alert the proper air defense battery and have it fire and fly up to hit the incoming projectile, and all in a matter of seconds. It really pushes the limits of technology, even today. The first operational CRAM was simply a modified Phalanx Sea-Whiz used on the US and others Navy ships, which is called Centurion. It was first deployed operationally to Iraq in 2005 to defend against non-state actors launching rocket attacks on US bases in the country. Not many other countries had developed CRAM systems, as they don't have a need. It's just such a specific scenario in which you'd need them. The short range of rockets and artillery means you need to have places where an enemy is nearby, otherwise they're just a waste of money. But one area that does make sense to have them, and does meet that criteria, is Israel. Israel is a small country that's experienced rocket, artillery, and missile attacks from nearly all sides. After having over 12,000 rockets launched at them between 2000 and 2008 from Gaza and Lebanon, Israel really began serious research and development of a CRAM system. They originally considered buying the US Centurion, before deciding to build their own, along with the help of the US, which resulted in Iron Dome. Iron Dome consists of a radar, which can detect and track incoming projectiles, a control unit, which calculates a trajectory and impact point, and the missile launchers, or TELs, each carrying 20 Tamir interceptor missiles. The problem with using missiles to intercept targets is that they tend to be extremely expensive, compared to the cannon type like Centurion. They are faster, they have to be maneuverable, and carry an onboard guidance system, which greatly increased cost. The Tamir missile reportedly costs $20,000 to $50,000 each, depending on the variant and how you break down costs. During mass rocket attacks, it could easily be overwhelmed, or simply run out of missiles. One smart way the system has to try to avoid this is that its radar, the ELM 2084, and a control unit can calculate if the rocket will fall into a populated area, or somewhere it needs to protect, or will just fall into a field or see and miss, therefore greatly decreasing the number it needs to attempt to intercept. As to just how effective Iron Dome actually is, that could be complicated. Tamir is not a hit-to-kill missile, unlike the PAC-3 Patriot. Instead, it uses a proximity fuse that detonates when it senses that it's close enough, blasting out projectiles, hoping at least one hits the target in a shotgun-type style. A problem with calculating a success rate arises, as it might hit an incoming rocket, but not fully destroy it. This was seen on a much bigger systems, with PAC-1 and PAC-2 Patriot missiles during the Gulf War. Their blast fragmentation warheads would sometimes hit an incoming ballistic missile, but only slightly damage it. This typically knocks the missile or rocket off course though, so it could, in some cases, be considered a success. One very important thing Iron Dome does have going for it though is real-world combat experience. Testing and exercises can just never fully be a substitute for actual experience. In tests, all systems are recalibrated, they know a simulated attack is coming, and they're fully ready for it. Going back to Patriot again, it showed incredible capability in testing. However, when it first experienced combat, things were different. Such a seemingly minor thing, like the internal clock being off a fraction of a second after running for 100 hours straight, caused Patriot to fail to defend against an Iraqi Scud missile, which ended up hitting a US Army barracks in Saudi Arabia. Small problems like this are difficult to detect and fix during testing, but afterward, the problem was fixed. Again, this is where Iron Dome's experience really helps it. After being operational for a decade now, and intercepting hundreds of rockets, any issues, no matter how small, have likely all been identified and fixed. This is the same reason why the Soviet Union, and now Russia, have been able to develop some of the most capable air defense systems in the world. They gained an incredible amount of experience from early systems like the S-75 and S-125 against aircraft in the Vietnam War and wars in the Middle East like the Yom Kippur War. They took this knowledge and used it to further improve future air defense systems. Experience really can make the most difference, sometimes more so than training or even having the latest technology and hardware. It really comes down to experience from actual real-world scenarios. So, Iron Dome is certainly a very successful system, and we've all seen evidence and videos of that in the news and from the aftermath of attacks. But, like any missile defense system, it is limited. It only has so many Tamir interceptor missiles, and can still be overwhelmed. The cost is yet another issue. The cheap rockets they are made to defend against might cost only a few $100s each, compared to the tens of thousands of dollars for each interceptor. In the near future, we will begin to see direct energy weapons, like lasers, take the place of some of these systems. Lasers can cost as low as a few cents worth of energy per shot, and Israel is working on this too, with their so-called Iron Beam. Lasers have their own problems though, such as the delicate and sensitive optics required to focus that beam. So maybe in a few years, we will be looking and seeing just how effective Iron Beam is.